So welcome. Happy AD meeting. Darren's not here. He and Michelle are, I think, in Chicago talking about ESSA and our state plan and all that exciting stuff. Probably helps to be in Chicago rather than here talking about it. I don't know, but he's out, and so we'll run through this. And please, as always, as you have questions and you know, the usual, let us know. So he put this one in. I don't know if I'm much of an optimist, so I think it's a good thing, but I tend to look at it. I say more realistic, but I think it's just negative, to be honest. Okay, we are in keeping with tradition, and I wouldn't want to disappoint Darren. We're going to have a Kahoot. Yeah. So it's 6 questions. I added one. So Emily's going to set that up. And so if you want to join online, kahoot.it, and we'll pull it up here, hopefully. Today it's going to be about special codes. We're just sharing a few scenarios to see, let's go with classic. Or does it automatic? Yeah, that one. Okay, there's our game pin. A few minutes. I don't know, Darren's more of a game show host, I guess. I don't know if I like this. Okay. So you can enter in if you want to try this out, or at least make sure you're kind of paying attention to what the answers are. Yes? Is it multiple people that are not listening?
I can hear everything in here. I can hear me off of that.
From here?
Mm-hmm. I can hear Natalie can hear.
Don't know quite what to do on that one.
It's working kind of.
Okay. Well, let's just monitor it though, and see if we can go with it. Okay, so some can hear, some can't. Okay. Yeah, let's start it. How exciting. Okay, so 6 questions, special codes. First one, a student is not in TIDE, but the SIS shows an enrollment. Who should you call? Hopefully you can at least get it down to 2 on this one. Okay, ooh, there you go. Okay, so district Utrecht's contact, or LEA, if you're at a charter school, the Utrecht's contact. Okay, let's see who got him. Joe. All right. Okay, next one. Student data was corrected. How long till it displays in TIDE? There's been some confusion, I think, even from us sharing information with you. So there you go. It should be in the next upload, but you need to give it a little bit of time. Could take a little bit depending on the uploads and how they're working. Okay, next. Okay. Same. All right, a student started to test before parent opted them out. Which code should you use? And 204 is parental exclusion for those that don't know that one. Okay, ooh, that was a good one, okay. Excellent. So you need to invalidate if they've already started the test so that we don't get the scores back. The student's not going to, or parents aren't going to have that information, which is a downside, but needs to be done. Okay, next. Oh, sandwich coming up. All right, next. Yeah, all right. So an EL student re-enrolled in the U.S. after being out of the U.S. for 3 years. What do you do? Ooh, that was spread quite a bit, yeah. Maybe didn't give you enough time to read the question. So if they've been out for more than 2 years without a U.S. enrollment, and then they come back after April 15th, that's the code 103 is what you would enter for special codes. Okay, next. Ooh, it's a close one. Okay, a student, a 6th grader has an IEP that they can use a handheld calculator, and they want to use it on the calculator section of the math test. What code should you put? Oh, good. All right. Accommodated. Modified is going to change for accountability, it's going to give them a 1. They'll still get a score back, whatever they scored on the test, but the modified will change it for accountability, so you want to do accommodated. And Tracy has a comment. I don't know if you can have comments in Kahoot. This is just a game.
This is Kahoot question sub 2, I don't know, to this. Can a 6th grade student use that handheld calculator on the entire test? No. Okay, thanks. Only on that section that has the embedded calculator.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Okay, next. Oh, pulling away. All right, here we go. This is the last one. So who should you contact about special code questions? And the answer is Emily Berry. Emily Sweeten will direct you to Emily Berry. So that'll work. It'll just take a little bit longer. You'll have to go one person more. Okay. And next, let's see. There you go. Sandwich. It's making me hungry, actually. Okay. So any questions on those special code questions we had initially? Okay. Emily will be talking more about special codes today. So we'll jump back to our PowerPoint. Sure. Wait, stop. Sorry. I just have to give you that.
What is the invalidate code that we would use if they started the test and then they opted out?
So there is, there are special codes or non-participation codes, and then there are test status events. And so invalidate is one of those events that could happen if a student's cheating or if a parental exclusion is marked. So you would go to the test status event and mark invalidate. Let's see, actually. Oh, so actually invalidate isn't a special code. It's a separate code. And I can get with you actually, and we can help you on that one. There are test status events. So if you have, we've recently been getting requests as people say they give an interim test and wanted to give the summative, or vice versa, being able to reopen a test or reset a test or invalidate. Those are test status events, and we can help you with that. So it's a separate one. Any other questions? Please remind me what 201 is. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, she's right. Yeah, the handheld calculator is an accommodation. That's why that's why you'd mark that. So Tracy is saying all other students would use the embedded calculator that's in the test. This is just if a student in 6th grade has an IEP that says they can have a handheld calculator, and then they can use it on that section of the test. Any other questions? No, you shouldn't need to contact us. You can contact us if you need help setting an finding invalidate and where that's located. The one trick with invalidate that we wanted to make sure is that it's kind of a two-part thing. So you could have a teacher who's administering the test mark that the test should be invalidated, but then you as an assessment director would need to go in and say, yes, I'm good with that. We're okay to move forward with invalidating. So there's a two-step process. So instructions for parental exclusion and invalidate, those are in the TIDE user guide. And if you want to email Kim Rathke or myself, we can get you that information. But it's in the TIDE user guide, it's all this information. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, so something for you to save the date. So the assessment director meeting in June, on June 21st, we'll have representatives from both Questar and Pearson here at the meeting to be able to just share more information about their systems and also be able to respond to questions that you might have. So be thinking of questions and things that are coming up that you might want to share at that meeting. As far as parental exclusion, this is more of a reminder that there have been some complaints. I think this has mostly been shared with Darren. But just a reminder that LEA may not penalize a student who receives a parental exclusion from the assessment. And then also, there's this new thing that the board has put in as far as an letter C there. Reasonably accommodate a parent or guardian request to allow a student's demonstration of proficiency on the state required assessment to fulfill a course requirement. I know there have been lots of questions about this. And with, this was sent out this morning with this PowerPoint. There was also a document called guiding, I think it's just guiding document. But Darren has put together some guidance on looking at. So can you hear me now? Okay. We'll try again. Oh, look at that. Wonderful. Okay. See who can type yes the fastest. All right. So here's the definition of penalized, just I think obvious, but put there. So just we'll go into a high level of the assessments we have coming up through Pearson and also Questar. And we keep calling it Pearson and Questar because we don't have specific names for them yet. So the college readiness assessment, and I'm going to actually, Sid, are you okay to, so Sydney Carter's going to come talk since most of this is related to the development of these assessments. Set up so you're going to have to like click 100 times to get everything.
Oh, good. That'll be familiar. Okay, so with our 9th and 10th grade assessment, our first step that we are working on with Pearson and the items that we're merging from our bank with the ACT Aspire bank for 9th and 10th grade. Our first step is to meet together with the English language arts people and the math people to create some crosswalks as far as the standards. So we're looking at the ACT core standards and comparing them with our Utah core standards. We'll review those and provide input, and with those crosswalks we will have a review meeting in July that we're looking at the standard alignment between ACT core standards and Utah core standards, and those items will be aligned to the Utah core standards. So as we're looking at the items, we'll be realigning any of them that fit with Utah core standards and not utilizing others that do not. So you can see for the 2018 year with the 9-10 assessment, we're working through those crosswalks right now. Our next step is also to be working on blueprints. So we're going to be changing quite a bit. We're not going to be able to have that vertical alignment with 9th and 10th because the assessment is completely different, where we're doing this hybrid of the two, the ACT Aspire items and our Utah Bank items. So what we're going to be doing is determining the blueprints and what exactly will be utilized or incorporated into each test. 9th and 10th grade, each of the assessments are fixed form. So we'll be looking at how many of each items on each standards and which particular items are going to go on each form. Each form will also have slots for benchmark items that will have some development happening to keep our banks up and running. So we'll have that blueprint meeting. We'll be inviting educators in June, June 7th and 8th for the blueprint meeting. And then we'll be doing the crosswalk with the standards in July. So we'll be asking math, science, language arts teachers for 9th and 10th grade to come and review those, both the blueprints and the standard alignment with our team and with the team from Pearson. After that, we're going to be choosing we are going to be setting PLDs and what that looks like. We're hoping to have similar PLDs to ACT Aspire so we can make that connection with ACT and have that link between scores on ACTs and what it means to be proficient with the ACT scores. And then we will be selecting items from both the ACT banks and our banks to include on those fixed form assessments. That'll be finalized by October, and then we'll be working on some item writing for science. So you can see the flow of what we're doing to include items on the assessment. We'll take a look at best practices and everything that goes into creating an item, and then determining what art we're utilizing. We have some pretty specific rules on why we have illustrations in text and colors to make sure that colorblind students or visually impaired students are able to see and understand the images that are there. When we're including artwork, it's because it's enhancing the text or helping the students to understand a math problem or something like that, not just because it looks nice. And then they have fact checkers that go through and fact check any of the content to make sure that it is appropriate and true. They go through with an editor to make sure that editing is correct, and then we have a review with our team to make sure it's everything's how it should appear, and they also have a quality control check. So a really rigorous development plan and with the content of the assessment, but we're looking forward to this idea of merging the two together. So we have that link still between what the students are seeing up through 8th grade and then also what they'll be seeing on the ACT. Yeah, question? Yes. So originally when we had stated that we were going together with Pearson for this contract, the plan was that we would have to have just ACT Aspire for the 2018-19 school year, but we've actually changed that so we don't have to, the teachers won't have to see a different platform. They're able to meet the timeline because we're just going to have the spring summative assessment because it's an end of grade, not an end of course. So for 9th and 10th grade, we will not have a fall summative window. It will just be a spring summative window. And because of that, they're able to meet the timeline. So we'll have this hybrid test starting in next spring. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, with science, where we're not doing end of course, what is that going to look like? We have not determined yet, so that's a big part of what we're going to be looking at on our blueprint. We have some ideas. We've got lots of questions. I'm not exactly sure where it's an end of level, how we're going to be utilizing our bank items that are written end of course. We're taking a look at some of the course taking patterns across the state to see what are the typical courses that 9th and 10th grade students take in science. But there's still talk on science on what exactly we're doing with that. Okay, questions online? So will next year's assessment be a field test in 9 and 10? Yes, because we're going to be, it will be a field test because we're still going through with standard setting. We'll have to do all the standard setting after the first year of testing. But it will not be a field test in the way that each of these items, we already have data on all of the items because they're already items that have been created either by ACT Aspire in their bank or items that we've utilized in 9th and 10th grade in our banks. So we have the data on the items. We know how students perform on them. It will be field testing and that will still be doing standard setting afterwards. Mm-hmm. So the question is the 9th and 10th grade assessment will be given in a window, not a fixed date. That's correct. And we still have, oh, Jared, go ahead. We're still determining on if we are going to be administering on a block section, all of the assessments together like ACT, or if it could be more each individual subtest. We're still in talks of how that looks. And if we're offering that flexibility that some people do one way and some people do another way, and then talking with the TAC to determine if that impacts student scores if people are not taking the test in the same settings of administration. So those have not been determined yet. I think we'd probably want feedback on that from you, whether you would appreciate block testing or separate as far as scheduling and what you've got available with your schools. I think that's something that we really would appreciate your feedback on. So I think Darren will be communicating that in a survey with you all, what you're looking for. So one question from Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine. Will there be any benchmark tests? We're still working on the contract. I know we are hoping that that people in the field don't feel a loss, that the things that they've been utilizing they're still able to utilize. We're hoping with our contracting that may be able to go forward, but right now it's additional funding, and so we're still working through that. Jared. Thank you. Yeah, so with the benchmarks and interims, even if it does go through with the contracting, they'll be available in 1920, not in 1819. So 9th and 10th grade test, yes, it will be timed. A big part of our scoring committee, as they were determining where we were going with the 9th and 10th grade test, they had really strong feelings about the students participating in a timed test. They had concerns that the ACT was the first time they had seen a timed test before. And so they really wanted things to be comparable to scores that they would see on ACT, but also comparable to the testing situation, which timing was a big part of what they were looking at. So it will be timed in 9th and 10th grade. And I can't remember the other part of that question. Oh, paper, it will be online. So we'll offer paper versions for like large print, but it will be online administration. So different than ACT. Jason. Yeah. No, thank you for the clarification. So with the benchmarks and interims, we will still have benchmarks and interims in all grades, all contents, all grades, most contents in 3 through 8. The science 6 through 8, we still don't have a large enough bank to have benchmarks and interims for the 2018-19 school year. So we will have benchmarks and interims for 3 through 8. We will not have them in 9-10 for the 18-19 year, possibly after that. Thanks for that clarification. Ninth and 10th will have a writing component. No, that's not correct. So we'll have reading, language arts, math, and science for 9th and 10th grade, but no writing for 9th and 10th grade component. That's all the online questions. Any other questions here? Jason? 8th. So for the 2018-19 year, for 3rd through 8th, we'll have writing in 5th grade and 8th grade, and they'll be participating in one prompt. It'll be randomized by the student which genre. So students will have either informative or opinion argumentative, depending on the grade. But one essay, and it'll be random. Any other questions? The one constant is change, right? So we have just some dates, which my team will talk a little bit about this more in just a minute. So with Questar, which is our 3rd through 8th grade assessment, we are going to be starting with item writing. We're moving back into a pretty heavy development schedule. This year we're light on development, and we're jumping back into quite a bit more development. This has changed just a little bit, including numbers of participations that we're inviting, as well as science. Because the board approved on Friday, or Thursday, I guess, last week, that they would be able to move forward with looking at new science standards in elementary and high school. We decided to hold off on developing any items in 4th and 5th grade science and instead move that development to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So our science tests in 4th and 5th grade will continue to be what they've been the last year or two, and we'll be moving that development and those items to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to start and build up those banks, and hopefully get benchmarks and interim banks faster because we're building up that bank. And then we'll also be developing in math, language arts in 3 through 8. And that will be in June 11th through the 13th here at the Doubletree. And I think my team is inviting people within the next day or two to this training. So if you have teachers that you think would be interested in participating, we're always looking for more participants. This one is for item writing, so it's teachers coming to actually write the items. We also have next week passage review with Questar for 3rd through 8th grade, so we'll be reviewing any of the passages that we'll be utilizing in item review in June. And then we also have a meeting. This also has changed just a little bit, so the dates, it says to be determined, but it'll actually be September 12th, 11th, 12th, and 13th, or 12th through the 14th, sometime in September, mid-September. We'll be working on content and bias review. So we'd like different participants than wrote the items to come back and review the items, and also have a bias team review those items. And that will be somewhere in the Salt Lake area, most likely. Yep.
Will both math and science grades be aligned to expire as May? And then another question is...
Okay, wait, so read that question again. Will both
math and science grades be aligned with expire as...
I'm not sure I understand. So are they thinking the ACT Aspire, when we're doing the alignment in 9th and 10th grade, we're aligning math, language arts, and science from the ACT core standards to our Utah state standards in 9th and 10th grade, if that's the alignment that they're asking about. See, maybe if they'll clarify that question, or if I answered it or not. Okay, so writing changes. So with the writing changes, Jason kind of asked this question already. With 2017 and 2018, we've had grades 3 through 8 participating in writing moving forward. Next spring will only be 5th and 8th grade participating in writing. The number of writing prompts, 2 writing prompts for each student up until this point, or excuse me, up until last year. This year we moved to 1 writing prompt. 4 writing prompts were filed at the student level. So within each grade level, we have 2 options of essays for each genre. So a student that's doing informative would see one of two. A student in that same grade level that's doing opinion or argumentative would see one of the two. So we have pretty much 4 prompts at each grade level. That's going to continue starting next year. The students will see 1 writing prompt in 3rd grade, or excuse me, in 5th grade and 8th grade, but we'll have 4 options of prompts at each grade that they'll be responding to. The change will be in the reports that writing will be reported as an independent category from ELA. So after this year, starting in the 2019 school year, the students in 5th and 8th grade will have writing reported as a separate score on the report card or the student report. And 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th will have no writing score at all. Questions on that, I think? Yeah, Jason. So the reporting categories, will they be the same? Yes, with the exception that writing will be removed. So moving forward in our 3rd through 8th grade test, the reporting categories will be the same. We're just in the very final stages of approving the blueprints as we move forward with the assessments for 3rd through 8th grade. But we've been really, really clear that we want the blueprints to remain as similar as possible. So there are a few changes just with as we're going to multi-stage instead of item level adaptive, but overall we want the test to be the same so that we can have that trend in historical reporting. The exception to that will be, of course, in language arts where we're removing writing, and that was 29% of the overall score, and what we've done is pretty much divide that 29% evenly across the other reporting categories. So the percentage or amount of items that the student sees, the percentage that each reporting category is worth has been increased because we're spreading that 29% of writing across the other reporting categories. But the number of items has not really changed. We've decreased by 1 item per grade level in language arts. So what they'll see is pretty similar to what they've seen in the past with the same amount of field testing slots. So about 10 field test slots each student will see. And that goes for summatives and interim assessments as well. We've duplicated that same spreading out the writing across the other grades in the interims as well. So the question is, will the 6 through 8 practice clusters for science, will they still be available? I think so. Okay, so there is a sample site that will still be available. We're still unsure on the current practice clusters. I'm hopeful that things will be available because we're part of this sharing with science items with other states. Even though we're no longer with AIR, we're still included in this group of states who are sharing and developing science items. So that's to be determined. I think that's something we'll push for. Okay, and a recommendation was that the writing rubric scores be provided along with the writing rubric on the writing reports.
Another question. Are you thinking benchmarks will be available?
Benchmarks, the window, I think it's October 1st. Yeah, October 1st is when the benchmark and interim window will be available for 3rd through 8th grade. And everything except for the science 6 through 8. So October 1st, oh good. October 1st is when those benchmarks and interims will be available. The current ELA test, we have I'm not sure what the 3PL, are you going to talk about that? Okay, we'll skip that. Right. But currently that's how we have them. But we have the vertical scale from 3rd through 8th grade. We have the writing prompts that were included in the initial calibration when we had those base scales, and then those writing prompt scores were included in the overall ELA scale score. The new ELA, the same item response theory, same vertical scale. Writing prompt scores will not be included in the ELA scale score. Oh, that was the last one. And then communications. this is, do you want to go into this one? Really, this is our plan for moving forward with our 3rd through 8th grade renaming of SAGE. So we're in the process of the renaming. We're really close to having a name and moving forward with that. It's moved to May instead of April 23rd. But after that, and at this point, we're looking at finalizing the name and then moving into the collateral creation, which would include videos and brochures and information that you can share with teachers and parents. We're having testimonials, I guess, filming with some of you've probably been, some of you may have been contacted by BWP is the firm that we're working with to ask for teachers or parents and communicating about the assessment. And starting a social media campaign after the end of SAGE. We didn't want to confuse people right in the middle of the testing window about a new test. So as we get closer to the end of the testing window, we'll be starting a social media campaign about the assessment, and hopefully that plan and the communication plan will roll out this summer and include all of you in that communication plan so you can start sharing that with your people as well. Anything else? Okay. Any other questions on development stuff? I know we have a lot of changes coming up, so if you need clarification, please don't hesitate.
So this, just this slide. So as we're talking with Questar and Pearson, we're creating a public portal similar to the SAGE portal. We had a good conversation yesterday, Kim and I, as we went to Beaver School District, and we had we talked about the use of SAGE portal, what kind of resources you use or don't use. And so as we're talking with Questar and Pearson, we're kind of creating this public portal, and we wanted some feedback. So if you have some time and want to give us some feedback, there's 4 questions, I think, and they're open-ended, but it's more about what resources are useful, how do you use it, do you even use it? And so where we can, as we're creating the new portal, get access to the right people, to the right kinds of documents. And that would include students and parents as well. If you've had questions from them, any of that kind of information. Sure. Well, sure. We're looking for feedback somewhat quick. Well, we're in discussions now, so I mean, if it's in the next week or so, I think we're okay. I don't think it has to be by tomorrow necessarily, but it's going to be helpful the quicker we get it. So as you get and if you want to share it with teachers or ask them how they use it, what they use it for. And this is the public portal before the login. So if you log in, you go somewhere else, right, to Tide or online reporting system or something. This is just the general, I'm looking for resources, I'm looking for information. How's it used? Any questions on that? Okay, we'll double check the link. Make sure it's live. Okay. It's how we're all working around here, I guess. A little slow, but we'll get there. Okay, Angela Battaglia, super excited to be able to finally, she attends these meetings constantly and finally gets to share something.
Okay, any of you get the results for NAEP? Anyone see reports, results, anything from the news? Nothing. Okay, great. Just what I thought. So for those of you that aren't familiar with NAEP, NAEP is the national assessment that we do every year, and then every other year we do it at state level. So we actually get state results. And a lot of you who aren't familiar with NAEP kind of blow those results off. It doesn't matter too much. But in fact, the demographics in the end, the sample that we take, turns out to be just like the results we get at the state level. Now, we're not testing every single student because we just do a sample of students. But every year we get written up by EdWeek and EdNext and as one of the truth tellers. So it's pretty much just down to us in New York, where our results mimic those of the states. And the example that's commonly used in NAEP is that if you were going to go into the doctors and get tested for diabetes, they would do a blood sample on you, and you would get the results back, and you would test that, you would trust the sample. Or would you say, no, 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 I want all of my blood tested? It's a sample. It's a reliable sample of the results. So this year, we just got our results back, and it got more media press than it ever has, especially in Utah. Usually we get pretty much nothing, and everyone was interested this year. So this being our 10, 11, 12, what are we in? Maybe the 4th cycle that we've been in, state and national, of since we've been in the Common Core, the Utah Common Core. I highlighted here in yellow when we started doing the Utah Common Core, and you can see our results. In math, we are flat. And so if you see a little discrepancy here, by a point, that's because it's not statistically significant, so we see no change in our data. So math flat at 4th grade, at 8th grade. Reading we're flat at 4th grade and 8th grade. Science, we hadn't tested in a very long time, so we had an enormous growth in science. In fact, we were top in the country in science. So we don't get that kind of good news very often. But as you can see, we are still outperforming the nation. Even though we've been flat for the last several cycles, we still outperform the nation in all areas at 4th and 8th grade. Any questions with that picture before I scoot on? Okay, so the big news for this year in 2017 is that our Utah students that are at proficient are outperforming the nation. So again, our kids at the top, the ones that we would say is a 3 or a 4 in SAGE, those kids are outperforming other kids at that same level. And so I listed all the states here because when we get to the pictures, I can't always identify all the states. So in case you need to do that, you can skip back to that page, and you should have all these attachments. So here we are in math, grade 4. You can see that the light-colored states are this, performed lower than Utah. Utah's the highlighted green. Those that are the median colored blue did the same, and those that are dark blue outperformed Utah students. That's for 4th grade. 8th grade math, same color coding, everything pretty much south. Does worse than Utah, same, and then the dark blue did above. So not many people are outperforming Utah students at grade 8 in mathematics. Grade 4 reading, same, not very many kids outperforming, which to me this is really good news because historically other states have an earlier cut point for when kids should be reading to learn and no longer learning to read. Utah's always been a little bit lower, a higher age, an older age where we believe it's time to start reading to learn. And so it's been paying off from what I can tell, is that our kids are doing great, outperforming the nation. And here we are at 8th grade. Again, only 7 jurisdictions. And they say jurisdictions because Department of Defense is in there. And so it's just jurisdictions instead of just states. And Department of Defense always outperforms everyone. Okay, so my big picture when I was sitting here looking at this data for 3 days back at the release, this was the big thing that caught my eye. What I'm seeing is our top performers are doing better and our bottom performers are dipping. We're losing our bottom performers. And I'm sure you're seeing this at your district level, and I'll show you in a second, we're also seeing this at the state level. So when I stand back and look at the picture, that's what grabs my eye. We're seeing a wider gap now. High performers getting better, low performers dropping. So 4th grade, we're definitely seeing it. 8th grade, not quite as drastic, but we're still seeing it. Mathematics, really seeing it at 4th grade, and 8th grade, not as dramatic, but we're still seeing it. Are people seeing that in their schools and districts, charters and Okay, so this is what when I was sitting there, I'm like, wow, are we seeing this at state level? So I asked our data people to grab our state results for SAGE, and things that are highlighted in the light yellow show that, in fact, our low achievers, those that are earning ones on SAGE, we're getting a larger percentage of ones at the state level. And then same thing that we're seeing at the advanced, we're seeing an increase in the advanced. So I guess that's a double-edged sword, because a big concern was the new, is SAGE, is the Common Core, the Utah Common Core rigorous? Is it increasing knowledge for these kids? Or all the top achievers, they're bored by it? The fact is no, they are actually increasing, but now we're losing our low achieving kids. So you can see this all the way. This is, we saw it in NAEP. We increased our percentages at ones and SAGE. And then SAGE, we saw it an increase. And this is reading grade 4, then reading grade 8, math 4, math 8. So we're definitely seeing it at both levels. It's not, just like a national thing and we can't trust it. It's supporting what we're finding. I guess, again, on the good side is we saw a dip in our SAGE scores this year. And I think we all had a hypothesis as to why that's happening. We didn't see it quite as much in NAEP. We saw it pretty just remain flat. So not as many kids opt out of NAEP, oddly enough, as they do in SAGE. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say. Oh, I did want to show you my headlines. You have all these attachments. These are the one-page reports that NAEP puts out. They've been attached to what you received from Amy, I believe. And so in the Salt Lake Tribune, we got this was online, Utah's national report card shows minority and low-income students lagging despite states' higher test scores. So you can see the diversity in interpretation. This is in Deseret News, nation's report card, Utahns above average, but not well enough, superintendent says. And the printed version of Salt Lake Trib says Utah kids eclipse their peers, some minorities lagging. So all minorities are lagging in Utah. Those that we don't have any results for a Black population because there wasn't a large enough sample size to get that. And Native Americans, we'll get a bigger sample of them this year because we'll focus on the National Indian Education Study. So we'll get a larger sample, we'll get our results there. But they greatly lag behind our white students in Utah, and they are dead last in the nation compared to their peers. So we are lagging greatly in our minority groups. Questions, thoughts, concerns before I step away? Okay, if you get any and you're thinking about it, you can just drop me an email. Happy to talk about them.
And on that happy note, we're now going to talk about Dibbles. Dibbles isn't coming, it's here. The window opened on April 15th, and the data needs to be submitted by June 30th. So regarding that data, if you're in Amplify, it's automatic that the scores are loaded. DMG, you will need to have them uploaded by June 30th. And then also in your SIS system, special codes and interventions will need to be recorded and listed before that day ends. Late data equals a lag in UTREX being able to roll over, which may equal a lag in BOI being up and ready. So the faster we can get that in, the more efficient we can be on our end. As far as Amplify and DMG updates, one thing that we've ran into this year a little bit is that days defaults now to the assessment. So if you log into Progress Monitor for days, you will actually need to do a few steps instead of just starting the test, because if you just start to test, you're going to end up doing the benchmark unintentionally. So if you log into days, there has been an alert up since April 2nd letting them know this was coming.
Every user that's logged into Dibbles has had this alert come to their screen to let them know that days would be benchmarking from April 15th on. So once they get in, they'll have to open up online assessment management and select PM for progress monitoring to ensure that they do not benchmark when they do not want to benchmark. Then also, if a student is accidentally assessed, per our technical manual, our USB K-3 reading technical manual, it cannot be invalidated. So that will be their final score. Per all of the warnings and all that jazz that's gone into making sure that people know that it is the benchmark. Also, if you progress monitor across the board in Amplify after April 15th and a user logs in and can't find it, that's because they now need to click on the EOY tab. If they get in and they're like, I can't see the data, I don't know what's going on, tell them to click on the EOY tab and all the progress monitoring will be there. As far as choosing your vendor for next year, this process will happen a little bit earlier in the year than it did last. So applications for the 2018 and 19 school year will need to be sent to literacy directors and the assessment directors by June 15th. There will be a communication going out on May 1st, and you will have until June 15th to get that in. So yeah, don't send it to both the ADs and LDs. You don't need to do that. Just talk with your LD and ensure that one of you gets that sent in. Now on to EOY data analysis trainings. We now have those set. Locations, dates, and registration is open. So along the same lines as the other 2 sessions that we had this year throughout the state at beginning of the year, middle of the year, it's helping administrators and teachers utilize their data and the reports within the Dibble system in more efficient ways to be able to help move their students. So this is the link. There is an attachment that is hooked onto all of the stuff that you guys got today that has the flyers, these 2 flyers for the trainings. If you send out that attachment just the way it is, when teachers hover over this link at the bottom, they can click on it and it will automatically take them to the registration. So if you send that electronic communication on, they will be able to register right through the site. So as far as what it looks like for administration, it's focusing more on analyzing the composite scores, determining root causes for certain things occurring that are trends within the data, and then building an action plan for next year with that data. For teachers, very similar. It's analyzing the composite score of different groups of students and what Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction look like within the classroom and finding root causes for trends in that data and then making action plans within that teacher's classroom to move forward into the next year. Again, coaches are encouraged to go to both trainings to be able to be that bridge between the communication and the lens from looking at districts, LEAs, school-wide data versus classroom or grade level data. These are the dates that we've set. This was really hard to pin down, but we got it. So Springville is where we have a set of sessions happening, St. George, Salt Lake, Nephi, and then Brigham City. And the KEEP materials, the corrected KEEP materials are now here. So if you are here today, you can pick them up from the Teaching and Learning Department. If you are not here today and pickup is not feasible, please contact either Melissa or Nora Lee, whose information is listed, to be able to set up who that we need to mail it to and get those materials to. The materials have been separated so that it's based on the number of kindergarten teachers within your LEA based on what we have in UTREC. So you will get the exact number that we have listed in that system. Remember, the KEEP exit window is the last 4 weeks of school. The due date for that data in Gata Gateway is June 15th. If an assessor is having difficulties with the Data Gateway system, we have directed them to contact the ADs first to get some support. And if you need help past that point, you can contact these 3 people, one being me on the ELA end. Liz Williams is our kindergarten specialist in teaching and learning. She's amazing. and also Whitney Barlow because she handles the math portion of this assessment. So if there's a question specific to a math item, that would be a good contact. Lastly, we have some information regarding anyone taking SAGE, all students taking SAGE. So historically with SAGE, we have a question. Okay. So the question was, when will data gateway data be ready to review? Is that for the keep exit, I'm assuming? We will be doing cut scores in mid-June, finding the scaled scores for the different items. So when do we think that we'll have that after the scaled scores? To input, if it's regarding input, it's any day now. It will definitely be open by next week, we're hoping, by Friday. Okay, so it's kindergarten teachers being able to start utilizing the data gateway system to input keep data. We're hoping by Friday. I got an email from a program this morning. We're working out some very, very, very last minute kinks, and it should be up and going. We've been working very, very relentlessly. Some of us more than others. One of them I'm smiling at right now. Along with, okay, good. That question was answered. Along SAGE. Third on up in SAGE, historically, the spell check system has been set up very similarly to a Microsoft spell check, where anything that was like a name or a tier 3 vocabulary word, such as like a scientific terms, they have been flagged for spell check. Even if they were inside the passage, they've been flagged for spell check. And the students have had to go back and sort of just ensure that they've spelled it correctly aligned with the passage. And then resourcefully, we know we move on if we see that it's spelled correctly. We've had feedback from the field that they would like those tier 3 words within the passages to also align with the spell check so that they're not flagged as incorrect. So we are working with our vendors to do that, to make it a more robust spell check based on some of those words that we see inside of our passages. It is not there yet. Know that it will not affect their score. So proper nouns, if they are marked wrong, it will not affect their score. And if the word is inside the passage set, or if it's another word they know for sure and they do their very best to try to spell it right, and it's aligned with how it's written in the passage, in the text, it will not affect their score as well. Questions? Anything inside of quotation marks is being flagged. I have not seen that. Okay. So the comment was that any single words within quotation marks are being flagged. We will look into that and get back to that because that's the first time we've heard that feedback. Any other questions? Okay, then I am going to turn it over to Megan for some WIDA information.
All right, good morning. And Anne Michelle is not here, so I get to let you know about all the WIDA stuff happening. The testing window is closed, so there are a bunch of resources right now available to you all to kind of help you interpret the scores that are going to be coming very soon. So, and I believe there is an attachment with even more WIDA information that didn't make it into this presentation because it was all brand new a couple days ago, but some resources on how to interpret the scores are right here. So there's guides and how to look at individual score reports, and also some really good talking points to walk parents and families through what those scores mean. So there's that one. WIDA screener updates. Just as a reminder, the WAPT is going to be permanently removed from the WIDA website this summer, I believe on June 30th. And that is going to be permanently replaced. And we've already made this transition here with the screener. The KWAPT is still going to be available in all the resources to download online. And there's not going to be any changes for the foreseeable future. So, but if there are to the KWAPT for screening the kindergarten students, we will message that out as soon as possible, but that will not be changing. Materials, WIDA and DRC very strongly encourage LEAs to get materials returned if they have not yet. And any late materials, this is their calendar for reporting. They're doing it in stages. So if you returned your materials on time, you'll be getting your scores when you expect them. But if you are returning materials late, this is their calendar for when they will be reported. But if you still have not, please, please, please get those materials returned immediately. If there were any materials destroyed through whatever means, please contact DRC so they can make note to know that those materials won't be returned because they don't want materials that might be hazardous. They'll instruct you on how to secure destroy those materials, but let them know so they aren't expecting them back. Oops. All right, so we have some really exciting news. In a few, yes. I believe so. Let me double check though, and I'll make sure that the results of when you should be expecting them. You can, if you jump on the WIDA website, it'll let you know. Just go to Utah's WIDA webpage and it'll let you know when the score reports are supposed to be reported for LEAs that return their materials on time. So really exciting news. A few months ago, Utah applied for the WIDA e-learning pilot. So a bunch of states applied for this and only 5 states were awarded this pilot program, and Utah was one of them. So we are really, really excited about this. And what that basically means is more free professional development for Utah educators in regards to EL learning. So we're really excited about this. I am still finding out about what professional learning opportunities, extra ones, come along with this pilot, but most of these will be coming in the form of an online platform. So it'll either be self-directed online learning, so educators can do it when it's convenient for them. It might be an online course that is facilitated, so it would have to be at a specific time. Or it might be blended where part of it is online and part of it is in person. But we are just starting those planning stages now, and we're going to be finding out about it in the next few weeks. So we'll let you know. We're really excited to be a part of this pilot program because it just means more great learning from WIDA. But there are some other free opportunities that WIDA offers that we have available to us because we are part of the consortium. So these two are not, I shouldn't have said free right away. I apologize because I'm like pulling the rug out from underneath you. These two opportunities are not free. Just by sheer coincidence, WIDA is hosting the Scaffolding Learning Through Language Academy here in Salt Lake. So this is a conference that we at the USBE are not putting on, but they just happen to be here in Salt Lake doing it. But I have heard, looking at the details about it, it seems like a really great learning opportunity. So the link is there if you are interested and want some more information, and maybe send some of your educators to that academy. And then they have their annual WIDA conference, which I know many educators throughout Utah do attend. And I only hear just raving reviews about this conference. I see some heads shaking right now. Yes, it is fantastic. Registration has opened for that conference. If you are an early bird registrant, you can get $100 off of that. So, okay, now for some more free stuff. WIDA screener schedule. So normally a lot of screeners tests take place in the fall. So gearing up for that, WIDA has made some screener Q&A webinars free and available. So they're going to be broken into different versions, but if you are interested for free live Q&A webinars, just click on that link if you just want some updated information on gearing up for screener tests that you may be doing with new incoming students. Another opportunity is going to be the American Indian EL Research Alliance Conference. It is in Albuquerque, but WIDA is looking for participants in that as they want to make that research, that field of study a little more robust. So click on the link or contact Rosalie Grant if you have any questions. And this ends tomorrow, but WIDA is very, very desperate for input. They are redoing their instructional framework, and they really want feedback from the entire consortium field. So not just at the state level, they want it down to the teacher level. I have done this. It probably took me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete one, but they really appreciate feedback on their new instructional framework. So if you have time in the next 24 hours, or I know lots of people are like, yeah, I know, but I would really, really encourage you because they really would like feedback, and this can really help align with Utah's expectations and thoughts on this matter. So the information is there, and you can also get it on the WIDA website. And go WIDA. So I think Rebecca is next for ACT, and I hope she has music. It looks like there will be.
Thanks. Okay, welcome to the ACT section. Very riveting, exciting, I know. But we're going to just hit a couple of items. There's actually not a lot for ACT right now because the state is done with our ACT testing for this year. So one request that I have is I sent out a survey link through the ACT communications listserv, and I believe it was on the last 80 memo as well. This survey should take you about 5 minutes to complete, maybe a little bit less. If you have a lot to say, it could take a little bit more. But typically the average time on SurveyMonkey says it's 4 minutes. So if you wouldn't mind going through just filling that out, that provides good information for me as I look at how is our communication going? Are you getting what you need? Are there things that we should change? Also, I'm collecting some information on what worked well. What would you do differently so that I can share that out across the field? So that is my request. That survey will close on Friday, April the 27th, so at the end of the month. So if you can just take a few minutes and get that done. Also, if you have counselors or other people who are involved in administering the ACT in whatever capacity, if you wouldn't mind also sharing that with them if they're not on our listserv, and then that would be great because I like all of that information as much as I can get. Data. I want data. And that is our theme for our music. Has to do with data. I'm just telling you that. But you'll have to refine what part of data am I talking about. So here is song number 1. Okay, you got a snippet. What song is that one? Daylight. What does anybody know what it's called, or what they call the Daylight song? Has to do with something they are gathering and collecting. Bananas. It is. It's called the Banana Song. So how would this relate to collecting data? If you think through the lyrics, these people have to do what? We're all bananas. Yes. No. They are doing something, they want to go home, but they have to complete something first. Anybody know what they have to complete? Yeah, they have to count the bananas. And so that's the tie-in here. So I'm looking for. Okay, online comment. Yes, it will. Tally me bananas. That's exactly right. So I'm going to tally your responses on the survey, kind of like counting bananas sometimes. Okay, that was song number 1. So successfully done. Next thing, number 1 question right now is, when are our test scores coming? And how are they going to come up? So they're starting to trickle in. Your students should be starting to receive those scores. The school scores are going to be sent as batches. There are some schools who have already received their scores, and they'll be put in Pearson Access Next under the reporting tab. If you haven't seen them yet, don't panic. It just means that they are not done being compiled to be delivered to your Pearson Access Next account. Yes, Rob? That those reports are in. So the question is there something that indicates that your reports are in? And there should be an email that says your reports are now loaded. However, if you want to check, just go into Pearson Access Next, go over to reports, and then it will be available in your reports menu. Otherwise, when you go to search for it, it will say there's nothing available or nothing to display or some message like that. Yes? Okay, so comment was, except for their makeup test scores, the school had already received their accommodated scores and their standard scores. I know the accommodated scores for most scores just came out last week. And so they were delayed as compared to the other standard administration because their test booklets were picked up later. So that's your school level report. Can you tell me when these are coming? That question, my answer is 3 to 8 weeks by June 20th. So I don't know. They don't tell me. And the only way I would be able to find out if your scores are there is to go to your school on Pearson Access Next and look it up under the reports tab. So the same way that you do. District reports will follow that same thing. They'll wait for all of your schools to be reported and then send you that information as a district report if you're at the district level. Yes, Kim? Question is, will it look different than what you've received previously on the CDs? And it should be the same. So it's just that it will be delivered electronically instead of on a CD. So they're avoiding sending out CDs. And incidentally, I just got back from an ACT meeting last night in Iowa City, and we talked about the new online reporting format that will be coming out in 2020, which will give you a lot more capability to kind of slice and dice data, export data. It's actually a very usable tool. And they verified that that will be coming out in 2020. Of course, that's after our RFP, so we'll see where we're at. But just know that they're making progress when it comes to data. Okay, next song, which actually is the last one for this section. Again, data is the theme, generally. This one has to do with ACT scores that are being received at this particular point in time. Before it starts playing, can anybody name that song? School's Out for Summer by Alice Cooper. Here's a picture of academia. Way to go, Tony. Okay, tie this in to what we're talking about. Does Tony have a suggestion? Tony, do you have a suggestion? This is for you. Yes. So all of our reporting, all of our assessments, all of this stuff tends to happen at the end of the school year. and it's almost here. There really weren't very many songs online about data, actually. So it was kind of sparse pickings, but that was what it is. Hey, that is the end of the ACT section. Does anybody have questions before we move on? It's your chance. It's exciting. Okay. Next, anything online before I hand it off? It's time to start, right? Okay, Emily, you are up.
So I should have titled this slide Sage Special Codes, but we're going to go over it really quick. So the webinar that was recorded when we did Sage Special Codes training back at the end of March, this is the link to it. We're working on getting the slides and the video posted on the website. There's a backlog, so when it's up, I will let you know. Grades 9 and 10 writing tests, you don't have to special code those. Just let them be. They're still going to show on your student list, but you won't actually be able to access them in the administration side of everything. So don't worry about those. And then if you have any questions, call me. The biggest thing from the SAGE training that we did was how does the code affect your accountability? And so I've modified how it looks to explain through what each code does on this. Your code and title. Then the description's nice now because it's going to give you more detail on when to actually use that code. And then the school grades, how that code affects that one, and federal. This has been updated, so it's current. One change to note is the 106 federal is now countable. So your non-participation codes, everything's pretty much just standard there, other than that 106 change. And then your non-standard participation codes as well over here. And your EL codes. Just to touch on the Kahoot. So yeah, if the student was enrolled in a school and then left the country for 3 years but comes back, we're still going to find an enrollment, which is why you have to special code that student's test. The other ones, if they're in the country for the first 2 years, it'll automatically code them as well. But those ones, you have to make sure you go in and give them their code. So on your EL codes, you have to have the limited English marked, and then the first enrolled in U.S. date. Those two things should identify the student in tied as an EL student, and if it's within the first 2 years, it will automatically code those as the 103, 104 codes. If they've left the country, come back, and you're still counting them as a first year enrollment, then you have to code it yourself on the other side. Those codes are available in the SAGE Special Codes tool, not on the Data Gateway, or not in Tide.
Will we see those codes showing up
So the 103, 104 codes that are automatically being set, you know that they're going to be set because the student is going to be dual enrolled in your district and district 00. So that's going to be your indicator that we've caught that student. They've met the 2 limited English first enrolled dates or fields in your data. And so we're going to make those happen automatically. I don't remember this one being updated, and Ann Michelle would be the person to know, but I will follow up and let you know for sure. The 106 and the 205 codes were the only changes this year that I was aware of. So and then your parent exclusion. Again, just remember if they've started it, you have to go through the process of invalidating or resetting that test and then coding it the 204. So, yeah. And I don't know who's going to take this one. So in Tide, you don't mark any EL codes. They're not available in Tide. You have to mark the EL codes in the Data Gateway Special Codes tool. If in Tide the student is showing as dual enrolled in your district and the 00 district, it's going to automatically code them when it gets through, when the data gets reported back to us. So those ones are okay. If you know you need to mark a 103 or 104, the student's not dual enrolled in that 00 district, mark it in the Sage Data Gateway tool. I have no idea. Yeah, and if you have a question of where you're filled for your limited English first enrolled dates, check with your SIS system, help desk.
Okay, this is somewhat quick. Just wanted to let you know, as far as accountability, that the board decided on April 12th to do this. So accountability reports will be published for 17-18 school year. However, there won't be a letter grade attached. So it'll look, but it will have all the performance indicators. So it'll look somewhat like that. Well, hopefully without the red X through everything. You won't see that part, but it will have the information below, just no grade attached for this 17-18 school year. Yeah.
Will letter grade calculate so that LEAs know what they would have been?
Good question. Let me follow up with Anne Michelle on that and get that back to you. Oh yeah. So the question is, will the calculation for the letter grade still be done so that that can be shared with LEAs? And I will check with Anne Michelle on that. I would assume so, but I will check. I mean, if they have all the other information, it would just be a matter of just not publishing it, but let me check. Some more information related to the accountability, the reports. And I think some of this was shared by Darren previously, but you have, because of the science assessment and the various things taking place with that, reports are expected to be published in December. You, as the LEA, will have a chance to be able to look at those prior to those being released publicly. Is what the case? Could they share, please? And then I'll wait for that question, but then I'll turn it over to Kim to talk about some of the trainings happening for our new assessment system.
We thought you might want to know when stuff is coming this year for next year. Hey, we feel so good. We even put these in Midas already, so you should be really impressed. So here we go. All right. We have Nextera training schedules. You can register for those in Midas. We have our new assessment director trainings meetings. You can register for those in Midas. And I'm also going to give you some really important dates. Go ahead, Jared. Sure. Okay, so, oh yes, so Nextera is the system that Questar runs. So, and that's what that is. So remember how we don't have a name for the test yet? We just call it Questar or Nextera. Nextera is the system that runs Questar's testing system. Does that make sense? Okay, sorry, but that's a good question. Thank you. I'm getting so, I don't know, 3 testing systems, whatever. Okay,
So here we go. This is too hard to read, so I'm going to read you off some dates with the idea that you're, of course, going to go look and run and register for these right away. First of all, August 2nd, and these are the Nextera trainings, so these are the ones for the Questar system 3 through 8, okay? So you're aware. August 2nd, tech coordinators, or there's going to be an IT training that's really for tech coordinators or your people that basically make sure your system is working. So if that's you, it depends on who you are. But it's really for LEA IT coordinators is what they're doing. It's going to be a webinar. It runs from 10 to 11:30. They are going to record it live, and then they'll post it after the session. And that basically, this one is basically just going to show you the basic stuff to get everybody logged in and get ready for the system to launch. A few things, secure browser. It's a really important training. You definitely want to know this because this is when we're making the shift to the new system, okay? September 12th and 13th, we will be doing our Nextera systems training, and that's for ADs plus one person. And if we don't get a ton of people, we may let you add some people, but we highly recommend you bring yourself and one other person who needs to know. And this will be a 3-hour training. They are going to do a webinar and post it after the training, but I would suggest you probably come to this one live. We will have people here from Questar. It is going to be a tech training, bring your devices, and we will be, one of the trainings will be in the north at Weber Innovation High School. Thank you, Sherry and Weber School District. And the September 13th training will be in the Sevier School District office. Thank you, Mike. And so we're doing one in the north and one in the south. But there's your registration dates. Both of them will be 3 hours along. Nextera, Lori, I just saw your question. Nextera is the program that Questar runs to run their system. Then on January 23rd and 24th, we will also have systems training as we launch the spring summative window. So there will be one on the 23rd at Weber Innovation High School in January, and then there will be one on the 24th in Richfield again. So exactly the same format. We're doing them. Okay. It's really, I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Because it sounds like it just went dead. All right. Anyway, those are the Nextera trainings. They're about 3.5 hours long. Planning on everybody trying to log in. Remember, it will be a new system. The first two in September, Questar will be here. The ones in January, Jared and I will be assisting with some assistance from them long distance. New assessment director trainings. There will be one on August 1st and August 16th, and this is for all things related, assessment related. And if you're a new AD or you're still kind of feeling like, I kind of like to come and learn some new stuff, it's a really good training to come to. And it's really effective. We'll be doing one at the Capitol. Both of these are at the Capitol, 8:30 to 12, and you can register for those. There you go. Here are some important dates for your calendars. So September 5th, the Questar training test will become available, and it will have a new name. We just don't know what it's called yet. So just know that that's when the training test will launch. September 15th, you still need to turn in your testing plans for next year with the understanding that we may have to name something differently later, but that deadline is still there. October 1st, the benchmark assessments for grades 3 through 8, except for science, grades 6 through 8, will be available. November 1st, the interim and mid-year summative will go online with Questar for grades 3 through 8. And December 21st and January 2nd, we know for sure Nextera/Questar will be offline for their reset. We may have more dates to add into, like for the spring summative. That just is still in process, so that's why we can't give you the official date. But now you know, and you can now publish these and put them on your calendars so you don't forget, so you can come join us for a really great time with no food. Okay. So here are some frequently asked questions that we've been getting. It's been kind of a weird testing year. Rachel and I have had some interesting conversations. 4 years into the test, we're kind of surprised some of the questions we got this year. We are owing that completely to the immense teacher turnover. So one of the things you may want to start thinking about is we've kind of been able to talk about things and do ethics policies and trainings, and everybody assumes that everybody in the room knows what everybody is talking about. And remember, new teachers or new people often are the last ones to want to ask questions unless they're super brave. And so it may be time to kind of start differentiating and start thinking about maybe we need to do a little bit extra stuff for some of our newer people. And that we think that that's kind of what's happening. And I'm seeing some of you guys nod your heads, so you're starting to recognize that a little bit. We had a really good conversation yesterday in Beaver School District about the same thing, since we couldn't, observe a test that wasn't working yesterday. So it was an awkward day. All right. So grade 9-10 writing, just so you're aware, everybody who took writing prior to March 9th, okay, it will still, they still appear in Tide, but they're no longer accessible on the live testing site. So a lot of people freaked out when they saw the grades 9-10 writing. Even if a kid tried to take it, it basically says, so sorry, you can't. You do not, again, we will reiterate this because probably Emily and I have been asked this question 12,000 times. No, you don't have to put any special codes in. Okay. Here are some things that you need to know about ISRs, or individual student reports. And I divided the slide up really clearly to make it as user-friendly as possible. So if any of your students completed summative writing prior to March 9th, okay, they will see a writing reporting score. Okay. The report will indicate too few items attempted until they complete the other part of the ELA test. So we've had a few people freak out where they're like, we took writing and their scores are. Remember, just like before, you had to do both parts before the ELA score showed up. It's exactly the same as it was before. It's just that they took the test a while ago. All right. Now, if they didn't do writing, which is most people did not have grades 9-10 writing, they will see their overall ELA score post once they complete reading, okay? And for the writing reporting score, just shows diamonds, like it doesn't exist, okay? So they didn't change the individual student report. That's what looks different about it. And that's only for grades 9-10, okay? Any questions about that? Because that's one of those things, sometimes people look at that and they're like, why is this different? Or did it go for hand scoring and they weren't supposed to have to take it or whatever? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, they are different. The September trainings will be, here's what we're getting ready to do, here's how you get everybody logged in, this is how the system works, blah, blah, blah. And there will be similar information in the January training as well, but it's also going to be, we're getting ready to launch spring testing. Here's the new system, because by then everything will be, this is what it's going to look like, and same thing we do. We've always done 2 assessment trainings, one in the fall and one in the what we call the spring, even though it's usually January. We've always done 2. We've always encouraged everyone to come to both. And if we're really experienced people, this year is going to be a new year, so we're guessing everybody's going to be with us, and we'll have our new testing system party. But everybody laughs, but it's true. It'll be, maybe we'll wear hats. I don't know. Anyway, so what we're doing for that is we would really like everybody to be there. And as always in the past, we've also updated in Wednesday webinars as well, so that will still continue. Good question. Okay, this error message. Some people are still seeing this when they go into Chrome. I emailed Robin to see if it's been fixed yet, and I don't know. I didn't get a response yesterday, but yesterday was not a good day to be asking a lot of questions again. But you may see an error when you're open a live test session using Chrome, and you get this little message that shows across. The workaround on that is that you need to clear your cache or change the browsers and restart the testing session. Most of you have gotten this. This alert's been out for a couple weeks, but we just wanted to remind everybody as more and more people are testing right now, just to make sure. Here's another big question that we've had about the SAGE and CTE assessments. There are CTE courses now that are connected, like agricultural biology and physics with technology. And the question is, do the students enrolled in those courses have to take SAGE? If it is a course that generates a SAGE test, the answer to that is absolutely yes, unless they're 11th grade, and then that the whole 11th grade rule. There are also the CTE skills tests that are totally separate from that accountability rule. The CTE skills tests are part of their Perkins funding, and they're given by Precision Exam, and they do testing allocations. Basically how CTE teachers, they get money. So those tests, they still need to do that, and they still need to do SAGE, and of course the same opt-out rules apply and all of that kind of stuff. Robbie had a question. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, if they've taken a biology course, they're done. Okay, if they've taken a physics course prior, they're done. Remember, it's not a separate, but good question. I love it. You always ask me good questions. Yep, yes. By the course code. It's the course code that generates it. Emily, you want to add anything to that? Is that basically it's by the course code. It generates the test. If they log in, the kid, yeah. And you can look up a student in Tide. Go ahead, add it in because, yes, Erin. Yeah, it used to be easily. I have found it and I have sent it. They're on the data. Yeah, in fact, whoever, is that Cindy? Was that Cindy's question? Cindy, it's on the data management page in the thing. If you send me, I will send you an email after because I can send you the links. I've answered this question so many times. I've actually sent this. I have the screenshot saved on my computer, and I'll just send you exactly where they are. Because they used to be really easy, but now they're under the data management tab, but you have to click like 300, you know. Would you like me to send it out to everybody? Well, I'll do that. I'll be so helpful today. I'm so happy. Okay, good. All right. Are we all good with the CTE? Yes, Erin. They did not change this last year. So the question online was, do the course code change do the course codes change every year? And the answer is they did not change this year. So Aaron is really sad that it's probably his fault now. So no, but that's how that works. Okay, so here's our writing workshop. We told you that we went out and we did our fabulous writing workshops, and we're saying in fact we're fabulous because we read the survey results. So let's tell you. And it wasn't just me. It was Megan and Heather and Whitney and Tracy, and we had a blast. I think I've driven more miles in 1 year than I ever did before. So here we go. We're just going to give you a high overview. This is basically what our goal was to design and present some writing strategies to support instructional. I'm going to read it just like this because I wrote this really long. Instructional needs identified from writing range finding results compiled from 2014 through this year. Okay, we've done some writing collection projects. We've gone out and done range finding. We looked at student data, and based on that and the information we got from prompt copy match and from text duplication, that's how we picked the surveys. We had a number of teachers go. Our biggest, sad, and most tragic thing, and I forgot to bring the book down, Tracy, is the fact that we had 635 people come to the first session and only 420 come to the required in order to get credit second session. So, and what's really sad is in the second session, we gave them a fabulous book that was sponsored by Special Ed, Tracy, Our Powerful Writing Strategies for All Students. We did a lot of stuff with that. And what we figured out from that is because we held the teachers accountable, we asked them to give a Utah Composed Informational Writing benchmark, writing prompt 2 weeks in a row or 2 sessions so that they could get some pre and post and give 1 informational writing benchmark. We had some teachers who came and said that was just too much work, they couldn't do it. Now some teachers had 5 months between the first session and the last to do that. So it was a little disconcerting to us. And in fact, and I don't know where if you went to us online, but you went to school district had the least amount of time. They literally decided to add a first writing session. We did a first writing session in February, the beginning of February, end of January, and came back the last week of February, and we had very little loss between. I mean, they had the least amount of time, had to do the most amount of work, and still completed it. And really and truly, where our feeling with this is it's something you may want to start mentioning. We are going to be presenting even more in-depth data to the curriculum directors and the LDs in the fall because their meetings are basically over. But one of the things that we're really concerned about is the fact that how much writing is really happening if giving one writing prompt and one writing test that takes about an hour was too much work. I mean, what's really happening. And so it's a little disconcerting. Okay, yes. That was a board decision. That was a board decision. All right, so this is what we did, in case you just wondered. For K2 teachers, we actually had them review the developmental reading and writing connection. We had them use prompts from the Utah Writing Collection project that we created, we created with Teaching and Learning. It was fabulous because they actually figured out where some of their resources were, so we could actually look at developmental writing, and they analyzed all kinds of stuff. Grades 3 through 12, we also reviewed the reading and writing connection. We wrote some prompts. They wrote using prompts. They analyzed, we evaluated with benchmark and interim data, so we had them actually go in and look and see what was going on. And that was a really good thing. Here's all of the things that we covered, just so you're aware. We did and this is over 2 sessions, but most everything. We talked about UDL and anchors for differentiation, disciplinary literacy. We hit text structure and prompt analysis and item development and academic vocabulary, elaboration, transitions, and we did multiple levels of data review. One of the things that we were excited about is the number of benchmarks that got used. This is our data from last year versus this year. And so they went way up, and a lot of that had to do with the prompt copy match and duplicate text, but we were really happy to see teachers using it. We've gotten some good data from that. There have been, based on the feedback we got from our surveys and from the participants, hopefully you've heard about this, there's been some really in-depth discussions about what good writing looks like, and and all of that kind of stuff. We still have people who want us to give a formula, like if you do it just like this, it's going to do that. In Utah Compose, just so you know, the use of Utah Compose for information has skyrocketed as well. And so I don't know if any of you have ever noticed, but we have actually increased, like from 3,850,000 submissions in the first year we launched Utah Compose to 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, we've already scored 4,800,000 prompts or essays this year. So it's been a steady increase. Last year it dropped a little bit, partially because the scoring, they had tightened down the score, so some teachers didn't believe that it was possible, and then it's gotten better. Our confidence, what we really decided to look at with our survey results is whether the teachers felt more confident. And we thought that this was a really significant thing, how they feel confident in writing instruction, because initially they didn't really feel like it was great. And how prepared they felt that they could use the information from the trainings to actually influence their instruction, which was our goal. We wanted them to see what it was, and so we felt really, really good about that. Here are some writing needs that were identified by the educators and things that we observed. These are our future writings, eventually are going to be some of our future writing workshops. One of the things we're planning on doing is narrowing the focus and actually present workshops based on one level or one particular aspect of writing, like prompt analysis or elaboration. SRSD, which is self-regulated strategy development, which is a way to get kids involved with monitoring their own writing, which takes the lift off the teachers, which increases the amount of writing. And our big message has been that one of the big complaints that always happens with online on-demand writing tests is it's inauthentic in writing instruction, because teachers instruct students to write using multiple drafts and take their time and do all this stuff, and then we put them in front of a computer and say, now write this in 90 minutes. So what we've been telling everyone is, even though we're moving to a grade 5-8 model again, school districts and teachers and everyone have invested tons of time on curriculum maps and pacing guides and learning new standards and doing all this. Just because you don't have a 3-day test at the end of the year, are you just going to stop doing writing, remembering that it's still half the ELA core? So that's basically what we said. We said if you you were unhappy with the quote inauthentic writing test, you got your wish unless your grades 5 and 8. That doesn't mean you'd stop teaching writing. And really universally the same question that comes up, why don't we have writing anymore? Every teacher, everyone has asked us that question, and people have been really supportive of we still want to keep doing writing. So we have Utah Compose for sure through the end of next year. We're going to be writing an RFP to continue having a writing program that's a formative, a tool, so that teachers can continue to use it. That's basically our idea. And then disciplinary literacy, we're going to start focusing on doing more writing in math and science. That's something that Whitney and Scott and I have been talking about. Early literacy writing, the vertical writing progressions. One thing that we noticed, this was one of Megan's sections that she presented, how few teachers really know what the writing standards are. And the ELA standards they spiral. And so a lot of teachers think, I'm done teaching this. And they literally said, I've taught commas. Nobody ever has to teach commas again. And for those of you who are nodding, you get where we're talking about with that. And then also the co-teaching writing model will be presenting, Tracy and I will be presenting this at UMTSS. We're going to be talking about self-regulated strategy development, which is a big hot topic. There were some comments, Emily, anything I need to answer? Oh, thank you. Okay. Anybody have any other questions for us? We're excited as we're getting ready to launch. The reason why we ask you to fill out the survey is because we really are trying to figure out, we want to make the portal a useful tool. And also, I was also asked by Sarah Wibke to remind those of you in this room to please make sure you pick up your keep exit materials before you leave the building, because that will make her very happy. Any other questions for anybody? We ended 10 minutes early, so you've got 10 minutes to breathe. Thank you, guys.